Welcome to the Community Corner, episode 10. My name is Stephanie Locricchio. I am an advocacy liaison with Children's Health Defense and so excited to be with you all tonight. Welcome to the show. We are really excited to come to you with updates from last week's amazing rallies in New York and New Jersey, and ending off tonight with an inspiring and really important message from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So you definitely want to hang in here to the end. But before we go any further, I want to go to Aimee Villella McBride, my beautiful co-host, who was tuning in today to the ACIP meetings and has important breaking news for all of you regarding the COVID-19 vaccine. Aimee, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our show today. So throughout the day, I was tuning in to the ACIP meeting, which is the governing board that decides whether vaccinations get added to the CDC recommended schedule. And today they did, in fact, vote unanimously, all yeses, to add the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine to the schedule for children ages 16 and up. So the entire day, there was presentations of various types of data that we definitely want to get our hands on and take a look further, because they seem to basically be sweeping any issues, any harms, any risks under the rug and really minimizing them. I mean, the theme that was repeated all throughout this meeting was that the benefits outweigh the risks. And, you know, they really just seem to not pay much attention at all. So they declared that there were absolutely no risks to pregnant women, no risks to the fetus, no risks for infertility. They also talked about the fact that all of the myocarditis and pericarditis cases were really not of much concern. They had data where they were showing that the number of hospitalizations and infection rates that were basically not happening because of the shot were much, much higher benefit than the small numbers of myocarditis and pericarditis that were happening in the adolescent age groups. So this was really disheartening to see, because as we know, COVID has a 99.98% recoverability rate in that adolescent age group. So how can they prove that these, clinical participants were not hospitalized and did not end up being in the ICU just because they got the vaccine, when we know there's such a high recoverability rate to begin with? So as I said, we want to get our hands on the data and look into it further and really look at what they're doing, but they are steamrolling this through. So what this means now is it is now recommended to be added to the childhood schedule for the CDC. And now it will be left up to the states. So the states decide ultimately if it then becomes mandatory, to attend school. So for example, we know that in the state of New York, there already is a bill live by Senator Brad Hoylman and Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz. These are the same two legislators who pushed and repealed religious exemptions in 2019. And they're going to try to now make it mandatory for school-age children 16 and up in New York. So now we have to keep an eye out all the states that have lost their exemption rights. So whether you're sitting in the state of California, New York, Maine, Connecticut, this is really going to impact you if you do not have rights to religious exemption, and if they have made it through regulations much, much more hard to obtain a medical exemption. So there has never been a more important time for the public to realize what is happening. And it's just scary when you think about it. No matter what data they showed, no matter what vaccine the ACIP discussed today, they have taken away choice from you as a parent in terms of how you protect the health of your child for an illness that has a 99.98% recoverability rate. So you have to think about it. What's going to happen with the next pandemic? What's going to happen 2, 4, 5, 6 years from now when another virus hits and maybe the recoverability rate is only 91% or 92% or 94%? They're just going to continue to push out vaccines because we know the pipeline is busting with them, and they will continually put them on the schedule, and your child will become a human pincushion for the pharmaceutical industry. So I'm just really still reeling from this meeting today. And it is now time for parents everywhere to really take note as to what is happening and to take control of your own children's health and their lives. And we're seeing that happening all over the country. And we did have some amazing events in the last few days. So Stephanie, why don't we bring everybody up to speed on some of the rallies that you attended in New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean, the news rattled me to my core. And I know you and I were texting before the show, and you're like, I'm infuriated. I'm like, you're allowed to be infuriated. And if you're not infuriated, you need to be paying closer attention, because the agencies that are put in place to protect us and our children are failing us, and they're putting their politically motivated agenda, whatever is happening behind the scenes deals that are taking place, to just turn the other way and unanimously pass something that hasn't been proven safe or effective and is not necessary for children who have a recoverability rate of 99.9. I mean, it's bizarre to me. So anger is not the word.
Yeah.
And
what it shows is the great manipulation of data.
Yeah.
And just the twisting of the facts. I mean, we know that the control group was eliminated when they did these clinical trials. We know they unblinded them. Most of them all went out and then got the shot. I mean, it's just dicey science. So as I said, I think we will get a hold of the data that was presented today. I'm sure there'll be an article coming out soon on the Defender that really kind of shines the light on what was presented and what we know to be true, so that everyone can kind of get a greater perspective on this.
Absolutely. And, listen, getting mad, being emotional is normal, but what you do with that emotion and how you channel it into action is so important. I get so many messages, and I'm sure, Aimee, you get the same, of people thanking us. I don't want you to thank me. I want you to join me. I want you to be out there in the streets, banging on your drum, screaming into your megaphone, carrying your sign, and showing yourself. The video that we're going to show at the end of this hour is of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. telling people to get involved, to get out there, to show yourself. Now is the time, because what we do now is going to determine what happens. So I was really encouraged this last week. I attended 2 extremely sweaty rallies. I must have burned probably 3,000 calories from just standing there and marinating in my own excrement for hours on end, but it was worth every second of it. Sweaty, hot, good fun being out there in New York and New Jersey. So I'm going to roll first to New Jersey, because that was the first event that I went to. And Parents and Teachers Unite Against Mandates. We had an amazing turnout. There had to be well over 1,000 people that joined at the height of this. Amazing speakers. We heard from teachers. We heard from parents, different people running for offices. It was absolutely amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and roll to the tape here so that you could see.
You are very mad.
It was awesome.
We do vaccinate, okay? So we vaccinate our children. But there's something about this one that's
No. I don't know why. They work before we go live, and then we go live, and they just don't want to work. So that's okay. So we were there. I was able to speak about Walkout Week, and I think I'm frozen now too. Okay, I'm back. I was able to speak about Walkout Week, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and just give you the overview of everything that's happening. The day after I went to New Jersey, I was able to go to New York to City Hall, which was an amazing energy. And CHD donated a billboard truck, which was awesome, because we had this mobile billboard truck going all over the areas that we were in New York, New Jersey, showing all of the real information about the COVID vaccine. And it got so much attention. So many people were stopping in their tracks looking to see what was going on. But the most amazing thing to me about the protest in New York was how many people showed up, about 4,000 strong, and the number of press outlets that were there covering what we were doing. So we had every channel you could possibly imagine. And actually Pix 11 did a really great job of highlighting and recapping that event. So I'm going to roll to the crowd so that you can get a feeling for exactly who was there and what we were up to that day, because it was amazing.
We will not comply! We will not comply! We will not comply! God bless! Get home safe! We call the shots! 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 Yes! Yes! USA! 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 No segregation! No segregation! No segregation! Thank you.
I want to chant with them watching it. Like, the energy was amazing. And it truly was a representation of New York. It was a melting pot of every race, every religion, every profession, every group that you could possibly imagine was present. Every political party was present. So it just goes to show that this human rights issue, what we're dealing with right now, being able to choose for ourselves and our children, transcends every single thing that typically separates us. And every group is showing up in mass, raging against these mandates. And that is one of the most encouraging things that I've seen. We had some awesome speakers there that day, and we're going to highlight just a couple of them. Michael Caine, who was the organizer and the founder of New York Unions for Choice, the one that created the event, he opened, and he was so powerful with what he was saying. His energy, his intensity, it definitely set the tone for what came the rest of the day. So I'm going to roll to Michael.
Today, I am announcing I am leaving United Federation of Teachers. I will not pay dues to them any longer. What union advocates for their people, their members, to go on unpaid leave or be fired? What union has ever done that? To all educators across the country, defund your union if they don't support your choice. 2,000 New York City teachers ready to sue the city over the mandate. So, Randy Weingarten, Michael Mulgrew, prepare for thousands of people leaving your union and millions of dollars of dues leaving your coffers. The president.
All right, I guess it's not going on from there. And just a correction, Michael Caine is actually Teachers for Choice. New York Unions for Choice is the organization that helped organize that rally. So just so that we make sure Michael gets, any questions or anything like that, go from Teachers for Choice. And then the next person I want to highlight, Kevin Jenkins, he brought the fire. Yeah. I mean, the stage should have just burst into flames after he got up, because the intensity and the truth and the passion that he dropped and the reminders that he gave to people about what it means to be free was so perfectly timed for what we're dealing with. And we're looking forward to having him on a later show. So it's going to be awesome to be able to continue the conversation with Kevin Jenkins. So let's roll to him.
Are you alive back there? Now guess what? After today, after this moment, after this second, what are you prepared to do to fight for your life? Now, your unions, God bless you, they done abandoned you and they took the money. I'm sorry, I don't make the break. I know y'all got hope, but they took the money. Your government, I'm sorry, I know y'all still running around here talking about I'm a Democrat and Republican. Your government has abandoned you. But you still keep acting like they're supposed to save you. Now, I'm here to tell you, there ain't nobody coming from the sky to save you. What you have to save is yourself. And stop acting so willy-nilly. Every time I get up in the morning, I get 500 text messages. They get ready to take my freedom away from me. You're a slave. You're a slave. You're supposed to get up and go knock on every door in New York City and say, we will fight back. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right? Now, let me tell you something. Freedom didn't come for free. All right, folks? Freedom didn't come for free. Freedom didn't come for free, young man. We had to fight for freedoms. Your founding fathers had to fight for freedoms. And my ancestors who came in the bottom of a ship, across the Atlantic. And when they came here, they still fought for this country. They still thought something was great about this country. And what are we getting ready to do? Throw it away. Are you going to throw it away? No. Are you ready to fight? Yeah. So stop being so damn polite. Let me just say this about the press since the media is here. And they're going to probably cover this tonight on the nightly news. The press, this is not an anti-vax rally. This is not an anti-vax mass rally. This rally is, and I want you to get the headline tonight. The headline for tonight on your news tonight is people standing up for their medical freedom and medical choice. Period.
So powerful. I mean, I think Kevin was my favorite speaker in New York on Wednesday this past week. I mean, he's just amazing. And Jamal was great too.
Yeah, he always brings something, but I feel like his energy on, because he said it at one point, like it was him or someone else. Where have you been, New York? Like people are waiting for New York to wake up because the world is watching. I saw that meme the other day with the Statue of Liberty, and like she's underwater, and it's like the world is watching, and like her eyelids are above water. And when you think about the symbolism of that, like New York is supposed to be that central reminder of what it means to be American, of what it means to be free and to have a constitution. And you look at the leadership and what's happening in that state, and it's due time. So there's plenty more to come in New York, New Jersey. We have things coming in Colorado and California. The states are rising. And I think that it's just perfectly timed with everything that's happening. So let's talk about what we're doing at CHD, because you and I have been screaming from the rooftops. And actually, when I spoke the other day in New Jersey about Walkout Week, which was originally supposed to be just for students, teachers were coming over to me. So let's just talk about what it is right now. Walkout Week, September 13th. We chose that week. It gives everyone a chance to be back in school, those that are going back after Labor Day, before Labor Day. If you're looking to, get your foot in the door and just make sure that you have your attendance there for whatever reason, your exemptions or whatnot, you have that opportunity to show up. September 13th, students, teachers, educators, administration, anyone who is saying no to mask mandates, vaccine mandates, or otherwise, is just not going into work or going into school on September 13th. You're keeping your children home. If you're an educator, you're staying home. You are going to show up in protest, and there's going to be local organizers that we're going to be working with in different states. So depending on your state, like in New Jersey, it's very easy to get down to our State Board of Education. So we're going to go down to our State Department of Education, and we're going to peacefully protest and have our voices heard regarding how unhappy we are with our children being unnecessarily muzzled when there's no science, there's no proof that it does anything. And it's an opportunity at these protests to educate our children on what it means to have constitutional freedoms. Because like Kevin Jenkins so eloquently said, freedom is not free. It's something that we have to work for. And the beautiful thing about this is we can give our children a lesson in what it looks like to be part of the democratic process, to be the change that you wish to see in the world. And while we're doing that, we have the opportunity to connect with like-minded, like-hearted people that feel the same way that we do. It's an opportunity to connect if you're looking for alternative means of schooling, whether it be homeschooling or a co-op or something other than that, to pull your children out. Because if you have the means, like my son is not going back to school. I found a co-op. I'm keeping him out. He's not wearing a mask. I'm able to do that. Not everyone is able to do that. And I want to say one thing about that. A lot of parents and people will judge someone else's decision. Just like we talk about people being able to choose what's in the best interest of their children's medical decisions, there is nobody that knows what's best for their children in general like a parent. So if someone decides to keep them out for that week and send them back, let's please not judge or criticize people. Let's respect everyone's personal decision to do what they think is in the best interest of their children. That being said, we wanted to make something that every single person can do. So if you are a parent or an educator right now that's watching this, and you are fed up, you are done with the mandates, you are done with being told what to put in your body and on your face, mark your calendar for September 13th. Make sure that you make whatever arrangements you need to keep your children home, to keep yourself home in this peaceful non-compliance, to have your voices heard.
Exactly. I think it'll be a powerful week. And really, the objective is to push back on the system. So if teachers everywhere, educators, staff members, students are not there, these schools can't operate. And so they'll be forced to really look at what does the community want. And we know that these voices are not being heard. I mean, we are seeing parents everywhere, all different states, rise up at their BOE meetings, present their concerns with having their children masked, and concerns with impending possible vaccine mandates. And these BOE, boards are just not listening to them. So here's a way that you can exercise your power, pull your children out, keep them home for the week, plan some activities so they're still getting schooling, bring them to your local, Board of Ed or to your state legislator and protest and have them see civics firsthand. And as teachers, educators, and staff, you absolutely can participate. I mean, we now know the state of California, New York, New Jersey, and the state of Washington, and I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting, have now said the vaccine will be mandatory for all teachers, all staff, and educators. So they're not being given a choice. And in some instances, like New York City Department of Ed, they can't even test as an exception. So it's really putting a lot of people in a horrible situation. And this protest, the week of September 13th, walkout week, is a way to really exercise your power and push back. So we encourage everyone to participate if you're being, pushed with these mandates, and to share this information as well.
Absolutely. And we have that pledge on Children's Health Defense. So if you go to childrenshealthdefense.org, right now on the homepage, there is an emergency mandates and walkout week tab. You can go on and take the pledge. And Aimee, did you want to read a couple of parts of the pledge for them?
Sure. So when you find this, you'll see the pledge. We want you to take a look at this, print this out, and share it on social media as you are participating. And it reads, "The people are rising. Health freedom advocates everywhere are now saying, I refuse to co-parent with the government. I refuse to let my child be a guinea pig for big pharma. I refuse to mask my child knowing that it is not safe nor effective in preventing the spread of COVID-19. I refuse to be coerced or bullied into giving my child an experimental COVID injection that has no long-term safety studies, especially when the risks of COVID is so low. I refuse to allow my child or myself be harmed for the sake of profits for the pharmaceutical industry and the illusion of safety for others. I refuse to sit quietly as our constitutional rights and freedoms are slowly removed. I refuse to be an experiment and have my job and livelihood threatened if I don't comply with these mandates. I refuse to be bullied into compliance by unions, administration, and legislators who don't respect my right for choice. Enough is enough. As a parent, it's my job to protect my children. I will not comply with these mandates. As a free American, it's my right to choose how to protect myself and stay healthy. I am taking a stand against any policies and procedures that I believe will do more harm than good. I refuse to comply. I pledge to be a part of peaceful noncompliance by keeping my children home or staying home myself the week of September 13th as an act of protest against these mandates." So what we're asking for everyone to do is to be a part of this. Share this with everyone. Find it on our website. Get as many people in your community, in your town, in your school district, and all over your state to participate. And as Stephanie said, we're going to have local organizers. We're asking people within each state to raise their hand, and we'll coordinate whether you're going to, your capital and lobbying your legislators directly, whether you're going to your Board of Ed. Every state will have a target where you can be throughout that week.
Yeah. And we want to see what's happening. So as you take your pledges and as you show up at your state board of educations or your schools, wherever you're going in your individual state, take a picture of the pledge with your face, post it on social media on your different platforms, hashtag walkout week, hashtag parents rising, hashtag my child's my choice. And the same thing for those protests and rallies that you're going to. Be a citizen reporter. If there aren't news stations there, we don't need mainstream media to cover what we're doing. We can just turn on our iPhones and be our own citizen reporters to show how many people are showing up in mass. Post it on your social media pages, send it to us, and we'll give you the address, advocacy@childrenshealthdefense.org. If you have any questions, you have any things coming up, we definitely want to know what's happening in your state and around you. That's what we're here for as advocacy liaisons. So that being said, we have an amazing guest tonight that we're excited to bring on. The whole purpose of this show and this platform is to highlight the amazing work, advocacy and otherwise, of anybody in our community that's doing wonderful things. So tonight, we're really excited to bring on Melanie Williams. She is an educator, a website and graphic designer, and a health freedom advocate. She's a wife of 2 children, 17 and 12 years old, and she's been homeschooling for almost 5 years. Last year, when our children were plunged into an experiment of virtual learning and isolation, Melanie began teaching children from elementary school to high school in her home. Her theme was community, collaboration, and competition, which I love. This year, she's had the opportunity to expand this vision and is one of the founders of the Thrive Community Classes. Thrive Community Classes is a conservative community of experienced educators leading students to succeed while prioritizing family as the highest authority in a child's life. She's also co-founded Heal NC and serves as a Millions Against Mandates web and resource development director and steering committee member. Melanie, how do you have time to do anything else? Welcome so much to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Welcome, Melanie.
I'm wondering the same thing.
That's what we do, though. We're moms. Like, we just do
That's
everything.
true.
And out of necessity, what we're able to create is remarkable. So it's a true testament to what happens when you see a need for your child. We just do it.
Absolutely.
So I'm really excited to have you. And,
Thank
you know, one of the things I always love to do is to start with the why, because there's something that led you 5 years ago to decide to pull your children out of traditional school and to begin to homeschool. So what was that decision for you?
Well, before I had kids and I knew everything, like people who don't have children think they know everything about parenting. I always thought that I would homeschool. It was just something I was interested in, and I had taught high school English literature, creative writing, and drama. But then when my children came along, I had started building a business, and I was running a graphic and web design business full time. And so it was really hard for me to think about closing that business down to bring them home and start teaching them full time. But and we live in a small town, so I kept telling myself that they were getting a good education, they were safe. Some of the things that kids deal with in bigger cities and more urban areas, my kids didn't face. And so I kind of delayed and finally turned the corner and could not run from it anymore when my daughter was in the middle of 7th grade. It just got to the point where I couldn't look at what she was learning in the context of how she was learning it and think that it was a good education. And I was already working as a health freedom advocate at that time, and there was all kinds of propaganda coming home about vaccines. There was a lot of lack of transparency with the teachers that made me feel uncomfortable. So it got to be that the cons were much greater than the pros in our situation.
And, you know, it's funny. I always want to know, like, when you look at the homeschooling, would you ever consider sending your children back, or have you ever considered sending your children back to traditional schooling? Because they say once you go to homeschool, like, you don't go back.
Not really, no. Once you make a transition from public school to homeschooling, and you go through the period that most of us homeschool families call deschooling, where you have to retrain your own mind that schooling at home is not public school at home. It's a completely different lifestyle. The way that you interact with your child, the way that you bring information in, the way that you handle success and failure is totally different than a public school environment. And as a product of the public schools, I really had to learn how to facilitate learning for my children in a way that was totally different than what I had experienced and what they had experienced up to that point. And once we hit our stride, which took us about a year, it just became this beautiful experience, lifestyle that I couldn't have imagined when I started out, like so many of the big experiences we have in life. My kids, they learn in such a natural way, and our goal is to master things instead of just acquire them for success on some kind of a test. So it's very different.
Yeah. I've heard so many stories, beautiful stories. We had someone on last week that homeschooled about 5 of her children. Cassandra has 5 children. Mm-hmm. And then TJ had 7. And I'm just like, you guys are my heroes. Like, yeah. It's unbelievable what we do. So it's encouraging as I'm embarking on this transition of kind of retraining my brain and unschooling my son. So I'm really happy to hear that it's been successful. And the pandemic and everything that's happened in the last year really helped you to expand your vision of what you called like almost like the farmer's market. I remember when I had my first conversation with you, the farmer's market, like place where students, families, and educators can connect. Can you talk a little bit about the vision and the future of Thrive Community Classes, which is the website? I've checked it out. I love it.
Well, so last year I was already homeschooling, and I had started to offer to school some of my friends' children in certain areas before COVID became a thing that dominated everybody's life. And then a lot of my friends still had children in public school. And when I figured out that the kids were, and as health freedom advocates, we could kind of see this playing out ahead of people who were just coming to realize some of the dynamics that are at play. So I knew as soon as they started talking about virtual learning that most likely this was going to be a year-long experiment, and the masking and all of that stuff. So it was a very natural thing for me to just be like, okay, I'm already teaching these levels. If you have a child in that age, send them to me. And that can be your introduction to pulling your kids out of public school. So it was hugely successful last year. I mean, the kids just had an amazing time, and their parents were just blown away by how they thrived. And not just like the educational side, but one of the things that shifts enormously when you start to homeschool is the amount of energy your child has to interact with you and to connect with you that they didn't have before. Because most people, when we pick our kids up from public school, they're just exhausted. And you say, how was your day? Fine. What happened? I don't know. What'd you learn? Nothing. You know, this, that. So you, by the time you get your kid, you've worked a full day. They've worked a full day. You're both exhausted. You have no energy to connect with each other. Whereas when you have your child with you, that happens naturally all day long. So the parents saw this huge blossoming of their kids in their interactions with them. And they found that they were so much more engaging and positive and excited about the day instead of dreading it and having anxiety and that sort of thing. So at the end of the year, even though it was hugely successful, the toil that it took on my home of having all of these kids in and out of my house, you know, my husband was like, we're going to have to replace the front door. Where are our dishes? You know, why don't we have any food? So it became obvious that I needed to find another location. And I also wanted to expand it to bring in more teachers and more families. And I was really at the max of what I could personally manage. So we were very fortunate that a local church just offered us their facilities. And from there, we just scaled up. I put out a call to people that would be interested, and I started with teachers first. There are so many experienced educators out there, women who have homeschooled, retired teachers, just people who have passionately followed certain subjects like science or math, published authors, that sort of thing, who have wisdom to pass on to the next generation and don't have an outlet to do that. So the structure of the farmers market is, you know, when you go to a farmers market, there's the umbrella of the market that brings all the farmers together and brings all the customers. That's kind of how Thrive Community is built, that we're an umbrella. And all of our teachers are independent contractors who are running their own business within the Thrive Community classes. And so they're the ones that manage the relationship with the parents. And the key relationship at Thrive Community is between the educator and the family. So the educator communicates with the family, invoices the family. We don't have like an administration or a principal or anything like that. Everybody is essentially running their own business within the structure of the Thrive Community. And the other great thing about how we're building it is it's being structured as a private membership association. So all of our teachers are members and all of our families are members. There's a fee to join. We interview everyone and vet them to make sure that we are in alignment as far as the way we see things in the world and our priorities for our children. And then that gives us a shield of anonymity. We do not publicize who our teachers are. We do not publicize who our parents are and our families. We do not mask. No requirements of health information from children or anything like that, because we're a voluntary organization. The connection is voluntary.
Excellent. I think that's so smart to do the PMA status. I've been reading up on that a lot. So kudos to you for figuring that out. And, you know, your model is just brilliant, a way to bring together all of the educators who are out there looking to now educate in a new way outside of the system with the families that are looking to be outside of schools, whether it's public or private. And, you know, I think that's just going to continue to grow. So we now see states that are, you know, mandating the vaccine for teachers, and they are not willing to comply. And obviously we know the concerns, greatly from parents. So I think this type of, platform and service that you have is just going to be in such demand all over the country. I mean, could you give maybe a little words of advice for people listening, our listeners, if they're looking to create something like this in their own community, how can they build something as wonderful as you have, in your community?
We're actually building this. When we first started, I was blown away by how quickly this took off. So within just a few weeks of me having this idea and sharing it within my own circles, we had enough teachers to teach K through 12, all the core classes, English, history, math, science, a PE and nutrition teacher. And we also have extracurriculars like art, music, French. We're going to be adding Spanish. We have a teacher that's teaching a Bible class. So, like you're saying, it absolutely is in such high demand that the first thing to do is to look for your educators, put out a call to your community, do an interview. So once I got a lot of people that were interested, I just put up a post. I reserved a space at the library and I met with people and explained the vision to them that I had. And then I asked them to fill out an application showing me what their qualifications were, because, we don't require our teachers to be licensed or have a degree in teaching, but we do require that they're experienced. So that involved a lot of conversations about, you want to teach this class, what is your experience level on that, so that we can really present you as a professional to our community. And then once you get that laid out and you get an idea of what kind of classes you can offer to the community, then start to let people know about that. There's a lot of groups that are, homeschool groups are a great place to reach out. But I'd say half of the students that are enrolled at Thrive are public school families. They have not previously homeschooled. They see this as their means to get out of the public school system and remove their children. There's a lot of concerns beyond masking and vaccine mandates. There's critical race theory. There's, the sex education component that a lot of teachers are very concerned about. There's some of the teachers that have a radical leaning politically. So it is a huge area of concern for parents. And then just the quality of education, also the homework level, the anxiety, all of these things make it so that school can become a very negative experience for our kids. And it should not be at all. So start with finding teachers in your area. Well, first start with finding a venue. That's really the key, is a venue that's not going to enforce masking or whatever it is that you want to protect your community from. And then look for teachers, get your class list together, and then start sharing it in like-minded groups. I would say to seek legal advice. We're very fortunate to have a legal expert that's guided us every step of the way. And so that's why, if someone out there is interested in doing what we're doing, go to our website, thrivecommunityclasses.com, and send us an email, because we are templating this. We'll have all of the forms, all of the structure. Even the website is going to be templated, so you could just take it and modify it with your own specific content and have the structure for the classes and everything laid out. All of our families have to be homeschool. They have to have established a homeschool with the state. And we operate basically as like group tutors. And the parents are still responsible for managing records and things like that. So that's another way we fly under the radar, is we're not the official teachers of the kids. The parents have registered as a school. They've withdrawn their kids from the school system and enrolled them with us for support. But our classes do cover the full 5 days. So parents don't have to buy any more curriculum. They don't have to supplement it all. It's all inclusive.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I had my children in a homeschool co-op in New York the last year, and it operated very similarly. And I think it's really important that parents realize that they still have to be the main educator for their children. Just because they are now in community with others and being socialized and being taught by tutors, you still are in charge. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. To exactly your point, parents everywhere are concerned about what is my child learning? What are they being exposed to at these schools, whether it's from the teachers, the staff, or other children around them. And so I think one of the huge benefits is then, having influence on who your children are interacting with and having a better sense of that community that we know shapes and influences our kids. So thank you for bringing that up. One other question I had was just in terms of, obviously we know this is going to take off. We are seeing homeschooling rates in the last few years just skyrocketing. And I think based on the last 18 months and where we're heading in the next 18 months, that number is just going to continue exponentially. I think we're going to see explosive growth in homeschooling as parents are fed up. So for your community, for Thrive, where do you see this in the next 3 to 5 years? And how big of your expansion do you see you're doing beyond your state?
Well, we've already had inquiries, and we don't start classes until September 7th, but we've already had inquiries from, I think, 5 or 6 other states, people that want to start something just like ours there. And, so we are definitely building it in a way that it is replicable. Like I was saying before, where you could just take the package and just customize the forms with your specific entity's name and logo, and it would be ready to go out. And everything has been constructed for us by a legal expert, so you've got that backing and that expertise behind. And then the same thing with the website. So I think that we probably have several people who are already going to replicate what we're doing somewhere else. But for us as a conservative community, we are not a religious community. There are some Christian elements to some of the curriculum that are going to be taught. But again, with our teachers being independent contractors, they get to choose the curriculum. We verify that it is a solid source of information, but then the parent decides, yes, I want my child to learn biology through Apologia or whatever. But most of us who are conservative feel, and people who are even Republican feel like most school systems are more and more biased against that perspective. So there seems to be less and less of a place for children that have a certain belief system in our school systems. My hope is that will change, but I hear more and more problems with that. So, the Buckminster Fuller quote about that you never beat a system by fighting it, you build something new and make the old system obsolete. I think that's happening across the board with our healthcare systems, our food systems, our, education. Everything seems to be under question, and more people are waking up to the problems with what's been established for us. So as far as Thrive goes, I have been blown away by the growth that it's had in the last month. So anticipating where it's going to go in the next couple of years is hard to do. I definitely see it branching off and having locations in areas that are, because we have people who are going to drive an hour to bring their kids to our classes. So to be able to put a satellite closer to them would definitely be something we would like to do. And, the sky's the limit when you offer it's the free market. When you offer something that people want and need, you really have no idea how the scale it could grow to. But I'm very excited to be giving this gift to children. I am very concerned. My kids are insulated from it, but they still need community. And, I believe that masks are trauma conditioning. I think that these children are going to have significant issues in the future through this experiment that's been perpetuated on them. And, I want my children to be able to have healthy relationships in the future with people with their peers. And so that's part of the motivation, is to get as many kids into a healthy environment where they have the chance to not just survive their childhood, but actually thrive in childhood. Is key to having healthy, functional, creative, happy adults.
Couldn't agree with you more. And honestly, I feel like that attitude of build what you want to create for your children. We spend so much time fighting, being at, City Hall, being in Trenton, being in your state capital, fighting against what it is we don't want. We absolutely need to start to put the structures and systems in place to create the world that we want our kids to live in. And it takes work, it takes dedication, it takes being fearless and just really creating a vision and sticking with it in the face of whatever shows up and allowing things to just naturally morph. And that's what I love about you, Melanie. It's like you're just letting this naturally and organically become what it's meant to be because you're doing God's work. You're out there really allowing yourself to open your home first and foremost, find a location, welcome families in. So thank you so much for everything that you've done. For people that are watching that may not have the hope and the chutzpah that you have, what can you leave people with that feel, just upset that they're in this position, whether they're an educator, they're a student, they're a parent, they're upset that they have to make these really tough, really inconvenient, really uncomfortable decisions. What words of wisdom and inspiration would you leave them with?
I would echo a sentiment that was shared earlier on this program. We are the heroes that we've been waiting for, and it's time to move through that energy. I really believe that what we've been through, and I'm a health freedom advocate. I've been in DC. I've been in my state's capital. I speak at my local school board and commissioners meetings. It takes a lot of energy to fight. And I think that that's intentional. I think it's intentional that they're distracting us from the power that we naturally have to make us continue to push back against what we don't want. And that's important. We have to push back. But if I were to say, if I were to give a couple of steps, the first thing that I'm going to tell every single person out there that what's going on right now doesn't sit right with you, start talking about it. If you're still silent about what's going on and you're not talking to your friends and your family and your children and you're not sharing on social media, you're not calling churches, you're not calling your commissioners, your school board and voicing your discontent with this situation, then I'm sorry, but you're part of the problem. And as soon as you start speaking up and you find your own voice, then other voices rise around you and you become part of the choir. And that is a community that is powerful, and it puts you in a place of empowerment instead of a place of victimhood. We do not have to be victims of the situations we're living in. Don't buy into that nonsense. Don't buy into that narrative. Take your power back, stand up, speak up, show up, and start building something. We have plenty of people who don't feel comfortable homeschooling their kids, who still want their kids to have a better education. So they are going to hire us. They're going to find a way to support what we're doing and get access to what we're doing. So even if you can't do it and you say, I don't know how to do this, put out a Facebook post. Say, who out there can teach my child? Who out there can teach 6th grade English? Because I want to pull my kid out. I'm looking for an English, a math, a science, and a history teacher. Who can do it? Let's get together. Let's make this happen. Do it in your home. Do it at your church. No, it is not insurmountable.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Literally, as you were speaking, the hair on my arms were sticking up because so powerful the words, and you can feel that belief that just you are so grounded in what your purpose is and the work that you're doing. And it's that kind of energy that pulls us through these really challenging times. So feed off of Melanie's energy and know that you can too. We all can. We have to dig deep. We have to get our heads straight, reprogram our brains, work with our children, and work with our communities to create the world and the schooling environment that we want our children to have. So thank you, Melanie, for being here.
Melanie. It was great to have you on.
And thank you for the work you ladies are doing.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. We'll definitely have you back on soon. We want to keep up on what's going on with Thrive.
And good luck as you get started with classes in a few weeks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right, you too. Bye.
That was great. What an amazing community. I actually got the chills when she talked about the Buckminster Fuller quote. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes about, moving away from the old and the obsolete and just building new. And she's right. I mean, it's happening in healthcare. Now it's happening in schooling. And, energy goes where you focus, right? So as parents, yes, we want to fight and push back and stand up for our kids, but we also have to focus on what type of world we want our kids to live in and put that energy there. So kudos to Melanie for, building such a beautiful community and the expansion of it for this upcoming year.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And now we get to roll to our favorite, the reason that we're all doing this work. So I'm going to go to the share screen and I'll let you introduce what we're about to play.
So on Monday, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had some words specifically for Europe as it's close to the 1-year anniversary of his historic and infamous speech in Berlin, Germany, about a year ago. And so he was giving updates. We have this on our website. You can visit our website, childrenshealthdefense.org, to see the full speech. We're going to show about half of it now because it's a little bit long. But he was giving an update on just the lay of the world right now and what is going on. And it was on Monday of last week when the FDA gave kind of the fake bait and switch approval of, is it the Pfizer-BioNTech? Is it the Comirnaty vaccine? I mean, we don't even know. It's just such a mess. But we're going to share this with you because he goes into a little bit. The front half is all the science and data. We're not going to show it because we don't have time to show the whole thing. But he talks about where we are right now in the world based on this approval, what it means moving forward, and what is our role now moving forward. And it's just so inspirational to hear these words from Bobby, and we want to share this with all of you. So we'll play this now.
That all pretense that this is about public health and this is about democracy and this is about protecting the public has been dropped. And they have come out and made very clear to the public that this is about power. It's about grabbing power, about imposing it on the rest of us, and imposing a totalitarianism of a kind that humanity has never experienced. Every totalitarian regime in history has sought to control every aspect of human behavior. They've never been able to do that because, of course, government can't read your mind. It can't follow you around all day. It can't tell you not to talk to certain people. It can't follow you in your home and know what you're doing and who you're talking to and what you're saying. But guess what? Governments today have that power. And we know that they are using it and that they are using this emergency as an excuse to impose totalitarian controls on all of us, a level of authoritarian control that no government in history has had. And at this point, we now have a duty, in my opinion, to resist, and to resist every opportunity that you get. Each one of us must engage in multiple civil disobediences every day. Many years I've been doing this, and I've never told anybody that you should sacrifice your job or that you should sacrifice your reputation or your income by coming out and talking about these issues. It's always been dangerous. We've always, for the 17 years that I've been doing this, I faced censorship. I faced various kinds of intimidation and punishment. I was uniquely resilient because of other things that I have in my life, my name, my reputation, my livelihood, the fact that I'm a trial lawyer, and trial lawyers tend to be tolerant of dissent. And so I had an ability to deal with these kind of attacks in ways that many people don't. And I've always avoided telling other people, you need to come out and talk about what you believe. People would come to me and say, I agree with you, but I'm scared to talk about it. And I said, I've consistently said, that's okay. You support us quietly. You don't need to expose yourself. And today I'm telling you something different. We all need to start exposing ourselves. We need to tell people on the street, if you're blocked from going into a business, you need to talk to the business owner. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be polite and gentle and peaceful. But Gandhi was polite and gentle and peaceful, and he still resisted. And we need to do that kind of resistance. There's a famous story where Henry David Thoreau was in jail were protesting for refusing to pay his taxes because his tax money was going to support the Spanish-American War, which he believed was an unjust war. And the famous philosopher who was his friend, Ralph Waldo Emerson, came to his jail cell outside of Concord, Massachusetts. And he talked through the barred window to Thoreau, and he said, "David, what are you doing in there?" And Henry David Thoreau said to him, "Ralph, what are you doing out there?" And that is the question that we now need to ask to everybody. What are you doing out there? We all need to come on the streets. We all need to resist. If your job tells you have to get vaccinated and you do not believe it's good for your health, do not do it. Get fired and then sue them. But we need to resist. This is the same kind of desperate crisis that the founders of our country faced during the American Revolution, and many of them gave up their lives, they gave up their livelihoods, they gave up their property, their money, their health, in order to provide us our Bill of Rights in this country, the Constitution. They knew that there were things that were much worse than death, the loss of our liberties, and they sacrificed their lives and their livelihood so that we could have this Constitution. But over the past 12 months, we've lost those Bill of Rights. We've lost the ability to have jury trials in our country for corporations who are making recklessly and negligently products that are injuring us. We've lost the ability, the property rights that we once had in this country, where 1 million businesses were closed overnight with no just compensation and no due process. We've lost the ability to speak freely. We've lost the ability to worship for a whole year. Religious institutions and churches have been closed in our country just by a government diktat. While the liquor stores were declared essential businesses and left open. But the Constitution does not protect liquor stores, it does protect churches, but the Constitution was irrelevant. We've lost the ability to participate in regulation when regulation is now done by government diktat in our country, by unelected doctor who is now running the American government, who doesn't have a regulatory process. There's no notice, comment, rulemaking. There's no public participation. There's no public hearings. All of the steps that usually go into promulgating a regulation that demand public participation have all been abandoned. And so we've lost our democracy now in America. And we've lost it all across Europe, and we've lost it in Canada, and we've lost it in Australia. And the only way that we're going to fight back against these very sinister forces, the big tech robber barons from Silicon Valley, the big banking institutions, military and intelligence agencies that are collaborating in this process, in this totalitarian takeover, in this coup d'etat against democracy and Western liberal freedom that we're seeing today. All of these forces are collaborating with each other to enslave us. And we need to bind with each other, and we need to fight back. And each one of you needs to do at least 3 civil disobediences every day. We need to start doing that all over the place. And that's how we're going to recruit new people to our cause and how we're going to begin resisting. Well, I want to thank all of you for your efforts to come to Berlin. And I know that I'll see many of you on the barricades. Thank you.
Wow, just so powerful listening to that today. It was such a great message to hear. And, you know, there can't be a more important time for people to stand up. And I think he makes such a great point. You know, you cannot be afraid to stand up against what you know to be wrong. I mean, I think deep down, most people realize this is just absolute tyranny. It doesn't make sense. Our rights are just slipping through the cracks right in front of our eyes. And just think, what are we leaving for our children? What world are we leaving for our children, our grandchildren, our grandchildren's grandchildren? If our entire rights and constitution and our sovereignty given to us by our creators can just be stripped away over a virus with a 99.98%, recoverability rate, everything's just out the window, and we can't let this happen. So listen to Bobby's words, take 3 acts of civil disobedience a day. Whether you're out in your community and you see a business who's asking for a vaccine passport or paperwork, whether you're facing a mandate, as he said, do not comply, let them fire you, and then you can sue them. If you know anyone going through that, help them, give them the resources to push back, and get out there. We need to be, peacefully pushing back. Peaceful noncompliance is the only way out of this.
And civil disobedience is something that, just a conversation, having a conversation that goes against status quo in a way where you're not fighting, you're not defensive. We do not get anywhere by being combative, by being angry or frustrated. We definitely make much more progress when we can ask questions, we can start to plant seeds, make people think in a different way. That is an act of civil disobedience. Calling your legislators, pulling your children out of school, participating in walkout week, showing up in peaceful protests in a neighborhood near you. These are all ways that we can be part of the solution that we wish to see for the future generations and for this generation that we're living in right now. So make sure that you make yourself known. I've been saying for a really long time, when it came to Trenton, I remember talking to people who were hiding behind their keyboards. They didn't want to post on social media. They didn't want to show up at rallies because they didn't want to be seen. If you are not making yourself known right now, if you are not having these conversations, and they are difficult and they are polarizing, and it's definitely not an easy thing to do, but now is the time to do it while we still can. So be brave and make sure that you are partaking in something that is pushing the narrative towards where we need it to be and maintaining the constitutional freedoms that we were given by our Creator. It is nobody's job to take them away. We allowed them to suspend the Constitution because of this pandemic, thinking that it would get better, but they keep moving the goalposts. So we need to take a firm stand now before it is too late. What is happening in Europe and Australia, it is a prelude to what will happen here if we don't show up in the streets. They are watching what America is doing. They are watching how we are responding or not responding in certain cases. So let's keep the momentum going. Let's be part of the solution. Be brave. All of you can do it. We know that we can. And I've seen so many new faces at protests in New York and New Jersey. So people are showing up, which is really encouraging. And Bobby's words are so timed perfectly for all the things that happened today. Honestly, scrolling back and forth between ASIP and then being able to hear him, it's like, okay, there's a light at the end of this dark tunnel. So I keep listening to his words and reminding myself, so I can remind all of you that we are more powerful than they are if we bind together. So with that being said, if you don't know where you can get information, you don't know what you can be doing right now, we always end off this program with action steps and resources that you can look at right now to help you during this really challenging time. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and take you through some of the resources.
So first things first, if you are not signed up for the Defender, please sign up. We have amazing content that comes out daily, just fantastic articles, truth, news, information that we know you will not get anywhere else. One of the biggest issues right now is the censorship and suppression of information, which is how they are controlling. We know the media is controlling the narrative. So sign up for Defender to get news in your inbox. Also on our homepage, if you scroll down a little bit, we have our emergency campaign as well as walkout week. So when you click through there, you're going to get information, whether you're facing employer mandates, whether your child is facing mandates K through 12, or you have a college student facing mandates. We also have information there on walkout week, the week of September 13th. As we talked about, we want parents pulling their kids from school in strike, in protest against the mask mandates, against impending vaccine mandates, and we want teachers, educators, and staff joining as well. So this page, based on each of those areas, when you click through, full of materials, information, resources, tools, scientific data, studies, template letters, all there to help you as tools to push back on these mandates. Also from our homepage, we have our advocacy portal. If you click Take Action, it will immediately show you some of the latest campaign efforts and alerts. Right now, we're pushing back on federal bill HR 4980, which would make it mandatory for anyone flying in and out of the country to be fully immunized for COVID-19. Any type of alert, new legislation, anything moving, petitions, you'll find it here. So check back on there regularly. For our show, Community Corner, we air every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You go to CHD Live. You'll find our show, The Mary and Polly Show, which is Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You'll find The Defender Bobby Show, as well as The People's Testament, which is featuring stories of COVID-19 victims. So tune in on CHD Live for all programming, as well as our live coverage of rallies. In addition, the community section on our website, if you go to the Defender in our navigation bar and then scroll all the way down, you'll get to the community section. This is where we cover, everything that's happening at the local level. So whether there's rallies coming up, events, any major protest, any news about what's happening in different states, again, legislation moving, campaign efforts, anything that has to do with advocacy and grassroots activity, you will find it here. And we want to hear from you as well. So Stephanie, do you want to share with everyone our email address so they can get in touch with us?
Absolutely. So if there's something happening in your neck of the woods and you want us to be aware of something that's going on, you want to be on the show, you're doing something specific, you have a campaign, we want to know about it. So please contact us at advocacy@childrenshealthdefense.org. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. If you have a flyer, some sort of a promotional graphic, please include the who, what, when, where, and why, along with the photograph of whatever graphic you have circulating, and we will be sure to get that on our community calendar. And as far as walkout week, make sure that you go on, sign the pledge, get involved, take your picture, start to get engaged in social media, check out all the great resources that Aimee mentioned. And remember that right now, what we do in this moment in history is going to determine the world that not only our children, but our children's children, and so on and so forth, will be living in. So dig deep, be brave, plant the seeds, have the hard conversations. Continue to show up, to rise up, to stand up, to speak up, and to be the change that you wish to see in the world. It is such an important time to be a defender of children's health, to be a defender of freedom, and to be a defender of truth. So show up and be the change. We look forward to hearing from you, to seeing you at rallies all over the country, knowing that we are making such a huge difference. So keep the faith, hang in there. It doesn't feel like it some days, but I really believe that we are winning and that the light is coming. So stay tuned. Next week, we're actually not going to be here on Monday because it is Labor Day. So stay tuned for a special time next week for our Community Corner show as we continue to give you details about Walkout Week and bring in some amazing guests. So we thank you all so much for being here, for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you soon. Have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.